But go ahead, Tracy.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've seen the entire Smiley Face Killers documentary, and that was just absolutely awesome. And as I know from editing video, it's a monumental task. So that was, I just got to say, hats off for putting all that stuff together. I mean,
thank you.
Pretty sure you're the only one who's compiled all that information all in one place.
I think so. I don't think anybody is like pseudo autistic enough to do something as crazy as compile 3.5 hours of information. But that was kind of.
Well, it's terrific.
I need to hold on a sec. So, yeah, I'm not trying to take over your show, Sean. You want to ask the introductory questions and whatnot?
We're totally casual. I'm really glad to start with that because I feel like that's just the other day, William, I shared just one of the updates. And I think it's one that's in progress. I don't remember the name. And I got quite a bit of pull on Facebook just from my friends and family, and it makes me feel good when you're doing something that, at the minimum, builds awareness, because the Smiley Face Killers phenomenon is a horrible thing, and it's not something we can talk about in the past tense, unfortunately, and there's people still at risk. So, folks, if you're not aware of the fact that the what looks like ritual killings, they're still going on, and it's worth it to let especially college-age men know, to point them in William's direction and let them catch a heads up, because it's something that's happening. So that, it's horrible, but I'd much rather be in a position to know about it and share, as opposed to people being more at risk, because it's shocking. It's a really shocking.
Excellent point.
So can I ask something like, I know you're kind of more broadly an investigator of all sorts of occult things. When did you get started with that stuff, and what would you say is the first topic you really delved into?
Well, I would say I was always a person who was willing, even like before the advent of like media, of the internet media, I was always willing to read alternate sources of information that were not corporate or state influenced sources of media. So even before the internet, I was reading stuff about JFK, alternate subject, never a public person, but really my first book was Prophet of Evil, which was really about Aleister Crowley, his ideology, and its influence on the events of 9/11 through numerology, but also the referential meaning of that numerology. So that was really where my research, just personal research, like I read a lot. I don't watch sports or anything like that. So it leaves a lot of free time to just kind of sit around and troll the internet. But I was always curious about the events of 9/11. And that's kind of what led me into the occult. And it was because I think I've learned over the last 10 years, looking at a deeper level of any topic, there's a lot more to these stories that even the journalists and other people, whether their biases or their sensibilities, do not want to look deeper into these subjects, prevent them from, I think, seeing the broader meanings of truth. And so that was really it. I would say I got labeled as an occult expert. I wasn't in the self-styled label at all, but it just seemed to be stories that I was willing to tell that nobody else seemed to either, for one reason or another, didn't want to talk about. So that was Aleister Crowley, then the West Memphis 3 ritual murders, then the history of Aleister Crowley through the 20th century, through people like Timothy Leary and Jimmy Page and all that. And then it was really through that book, my research into Alan Moore and his references of Crowley in From Hell and The Watchmen, was the Smiley Face. So that's where I started to make that tie, because I heard about the Smiley Face Killings. There have been journalists talking about it. And for people who don't know, the way it got its name was there were two detectives in New York, Gannon and Duarte, who covered one of the first known cases, a guy by the name of McNeil in 1997. And there was another professor who was in Wisconsin. His name is Gilbertson. So they kind of met up actually because they saw the similar pattern, and they labeled these killings of college-age men who have disappeared and then found in water, typically longer than they should have been found. Typically a body will float 3-4 days, even in colder water. But they labeled it the Smiley Face Killers because of the prevalence or the appearance of this smiley face that is typically where they think the body was put in water, not where the body was found. So somewhere around there, it's been a spray-painted smiley face in a lot of these deaths. So that's kind of how that whole pattern of me studying Crowley led me to making the documentary. I had no contact with either Gilbertson or Gannon or anybody associated with that, and they just came out with a really superb 6-part series on oxygen that came out in December. So I was really pleased to see that.
Oh, good, good.
Superb job, yeah. So anyway.
I want to ask you about this. There's this mockumentary that is on YouTube, and it won some awards at Cannes. And so when you look on YouTube for stuff about Smiley Face Killers, this is the first thing it presents you. And since it's a full movie, someone who doesn't know much about the subject will just end up watching this whole thing. And I looked at the comments. People cannot tell that this thing is fake, or at least half of them can't. And then the other half, when they see that it's fake, they think, oh, the whole thing is fake. The whole subject is fake.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's many other subjects, maybe Crowley, where there's so many different opinions and people hiding truths about Crowley, that these cases are very similar. Why are there cul-de-sacs? Why are there dead ends? Why are people manipulating facts about these cases? Why are they trying to debunk it? That movie's had a lot of influence. A lot of people have watched it. And like you said, it's a 50-50 choice between whether they figure out. Nobody in that documentary is real. Nobody there is associated with any of the families or anything. So why did somebody make it? And then the subject has elicited interest in Hollywood and in creative people who are making stuff. Because right now, there's a project that's being filmed by the guy who wrote American Psycho, Bret Easton Ellis.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's based on the Smiley Face Killers. And I know somebody or something came to my attention that the production is happening somewhere in the Midwest, and I think Crispin Glover is in it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
So there's a lot of things going on, and I've never had any contact with any of those people at all. I mean, but people have seen my documentary. It's done better than I expected, but one of the chief complaints is it's too long. But I had a ton of information. The strange, crazy thing is I could have gone 7 hours, but
yeah.
I was really just trying to push people's understanding forward, because they're looking through the lens of Gilbert and Gannon, which is good, but it's much broader than they've said publicly. And I know they're keeping their cards close to their chest. They're not telling the full story. They've made statements in their most recent series that there's 11 other additional symbols that they found associated with these deaths. And I think that my documentary was trying to and Jim Smith was my chief researcher. And I actually think that he's the most important. I've come to this conclusion. I didn't have it, but it's Smiley Face Cult is his tag on Twitter. But I think he's actually the most important researcher on the subject, even more, and it's probably a bold statement, over Gannon and Gilbertson, who really are the original kind of guys. But I think what Jim Smith has done is really broaden understanding, particularly mine, about the global nature of this phenomenon, because it's happening in the UK. There's cases in Germany, one Liam Colgan, Scotland, France, Vienna. I had one in Thailand in the movie. So I think that if I had a critique of Gannon, Gilbertson, and Duarte, it would be, and the production. I mean, they were produced by Blumhouse Productions, which is a kind of a well-known horror kind of genre production company. So they had backing of some legit people. But I think if I critique them, it would be that they haven't seen the broader picture or reported it. I think they know the gravity and the seriousness of these deaths, but they haven't publicly stated. So that's an unfortunate thing for me.
Do you think that's just trying to keep from sounding too crazy when you're talking about it, or?
I think that might be it. I think that some people aren't asking the right questions. I think that there's other people who have debunked this, tried to debunk what's known as the Smiley Face Killers, and it's a half misnomer. The title, not all of these deaths have this tattoo, and I wouldn't, in even my documentary, I didn't describe the deaths to one individual, but I think that yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot of people trying to debunk. And I actually made a video 2 weeks ago on my YouTube channel. I would recommend you and your listeners watch, which was titled "Debunking the Fake Debunkers" or the Failed Debunkers, because there were 2 documents. One was by Study for Center for Homicide that supposedly debunked the cases, and then another one. And I just analyzed them and showed that there's so many more cases. There's 200 to 300 cases of these young men disappearing and being found in water. That the phenomenon, without question, is happening.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
anyway.
I gotta say there, Bill, that it's a pattern that I've seen. I've been doing, kind of same as you said, not real big on TV. Lots of reading, lots of conspiracy research for a long time, 20 years at least, probably more. And I actually did an interview with a man named Jesse Waugh called "Paralleling." Was the subject of the same thing, where somebody's coming out with what seems like really honest, pertinent information, shocking, taboo, or controversial in nature, usually occult, they'll come out with a similar or almost identical story. They'll even put a person up that looks similar to the original researcher. They'll put out debunking and misleading dead-end paths. And when Tracy told me about this second documentary, I thought this is a huge example of someone paralleling off of yours and other people's research and leading them to, they almost want people to acknowledge that something exists. Like, okay, I see it, I know it, then it kind of goes away and they don't keep looking into it. And so I want to remind people too, the link is in the description to find William Ramsey, and there's a link there to buy the documentary. And of course, we encourage you to do that. If you haven't seen it, I didn't catch the whole thing, but I've been following you and the work for a while. But I think that you guys are definitely over target.
I'm glad you made that point, because there was something that happened that I just analyzed, which was the Hampstead SRA case.
Hampstead Heath, yeah.
Hampstead Heath, and I didn't really know what to make of the 2 young kids, but I reanalyzed it after all these years, and to me, it's a hoax. And it was something that was put together to make it sound believable, right? They had all of the SRA elements. They were talking the same language. There was child abuse. There were so-called rituals. But when I really looked into it, it was fake, and it's a real concern, because some of these people are discounting, like you said, discounting real phenomenon by referencing hoaxes or fake stories or fake narratives, and then saying that extrapolates into the entirety of the phenomenon, which is a logical fallacy, but still, that is happening. That, like you said, these fake stories are definitely being proffered by people for either profit. I think half of the UFO community is hoax, at least half.
Yeah.
And there's tons of money being made by these people. So that's one subject matter, whether it's Satanism, parapolitics, UFOs, where all of them have that problem of hoaxsters who really are informational snake oil salesmen. So, and it's happened in this Smiley Face Killers as well.
In that documentary, the fake mockumentary, one of the elements that it has in it, which I couldn't believe they were being this blatant about setting the kind of trap that we're talking about. But the person who's the main investigator in that story, in that fictional story, it comes out that he was faking a lot of the evidence, and then at the end he's kind of saying, well, I was doing it to try to get people to believe it, or to get them to take it seriously. But so the researcher gets debunked in the fictional documentary as being a hoaxster himself. So
right.
I mean,
interesting, great point.
Imagine that's you, that they're that's basically, this is someone standing in as you, trying to represent you to people that haven't seen your actual work yet, so that when they hear about you later, that's what they're going to think about. That's just what I imagined, because you're the go-to expert on this subject, and so who else are they portraying but you?
That movie has had tons of views. Last time I checked, it's over 1 million. So somebody's clicking on it, and I always field those questions whether it's real or not. So it might even be, what's really scary is that might be the most referenced film and document over all the subjects of anything involving what's known as the Smiley Face Killers. It's scary.
It is, because if it's if it is real, which, we all believe it is, everyone who's talking at the moment, well, it's very dangerous then to throw people off the trail there.
Right.
With something that's serious, because people actually, this is something that's ongoing, still a threat to young men. And what you've been describing about how these guys are being slipped roofies, basically, usually that's how it seems to start. Well, that's something that guys aren't looking out for, and they should.
Right.
But only if they would have heard a story like this would they even think about it.
Great point. Absolutely. So I think the predators who are out there had that advantage. So I think that it's important to get the word out. I think it's kind of creeping into the consciousness with greater presence than any time in the past now because of this new documentary. And also, there just more people are involved in the story. And for people who don't know, there's probably 10 armchair researchers like me who have massive spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets with names, dates, circumstances, and they're looking through all these cases. And, the numbers are off the charts. Nobody wants to really publish their findings, which you can't really blame because people could misuse it. But there's a lot of people working on it now that I can't disclose, but it's there's a lot of things happening outside of the public purview. And really, just to reference the oxygen thing with Gannon, Gilbertson, and Duarte, they had the more case that I followed. So when I really started researching was probably 2016. The first case I followed where I followed a man who disappeared and then was found in water was Joey LaBute out of Columbus, Ohio. And he was on Grindr. And I said, if this guy gets found in water, I'm going to freak out. He was found in water in the Scioto River. But one of the main cases that I really researched was a guy by the name of Dakota James, another young gay guy on a gay dating app in Pittsburgh, PA. And they featured him in that documentary, in that Oxygen series. And they did an hour-long story. And it involved really one of the primary medical examiners, not just for the Smiley Face Killers, but for the U.S., a guy that most people are familiar with. His name is Cyril Wecht. And he was the first guy to read the medical examination report of McNeil in New York, but he also read Dakota James's and found that the medical examiner, the original medical examiner, whose name is Chinese guy, who's not even an American, bungled the medical exam because Cyril Wecht found ligature marks on the neck of Dakota James. And his body was, it wasn't in the water for 40 days, according to Cyril Wecht. So then when the mother of Dakota James went to go talk to the DA, she said that somebody from the FBI and somebody from the Secret Service was there as well. So,
wow,
very important development, and that's that just came out 3 months ago. So somebody else was looking into it.
So, just for the sake of telling the audience, what is it you think that's going on when these guys are missing for several weeks before their bodies show up?
Well, I think they're being abducted. I think that they're being targeted, and they're either being targeted through gay apps or just at the local bar.
And these aren't all gay guys, just some of them, but there's like a gay element to the attack, right?
That's my general belief. I mean, I think if you look at the general motivation for crimes, money, violence, sex, this is the sex. That's what I believe that's really the primary. None of these guys have ever had their card stolen. There's never been a ransom note. And it doesn't seem, I think the violence is an aspect of it, but I really think that they're targeted because they're all basically fit the athletic, skinny profile. Like they did a show that the guys who did the Oxygen show were recently on two really important big shows, Dr. Phil and Oz, the Dr. Oz. So you can see those online where they're giving their information. Unfortunately, it's full of sound bites and cutaways to advertisements. But in that, Gilbertson got up and took the BMI, the body mass index, average American, average male. And all of these guys are off the chart. They're not in the center mean. They're off of the other side of the bell curve where they're more skinny and slight than the average muscular male maybe. So that was an interesting point. So that's why I think they're targeted. There was a very interesting article that just came out in the Daily Beast by somebody who's been following the case for a long time. Her last name is Egan, E-G-A-N, Daily Beast. And she got information from Dakota James's friend that he actually had been drugged 5 weeks before he disappeared. And he was at a hotel and called her and said, I don't know where I am, come help me. So there's other aspects of this where these people may be selected or targeted for one reason or another. So I think to answer your question, primary motivation is, yeah. So, yeah.
Sorry. The primary motivation is sex, you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think that's probably why people are confused about the phenomenon, because it's within a subset of the larger hetero community that doesn't understand, the homosexual community and then an even subset of that, which is BDSM, gimp masks, GHB,
right,
S&M,
poppers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right, exactly. Chemsex.
Chemsex. I don't even know that one.
So you just Tracy, you've never heard of? There's definitely the drug poppers has been popular for years in gas stations, and you huff it during sex. And I just know that because I mean, like William said, I've known a lot of gay people. I was a rock and roll musician, so you get more insight into someone's actual lifestyle when you're around them and exposed to them. And poppers is like an inhalant, and they'll inhale it during the whole intercourse process, whatever they're doing. It's just like accoutrement to some gay sex, So that's.
And GHB actually is used as a date rape drug, but it's also used as a stimulant in certain parts of that community. In my documentary, I covered Stephen Port, who is a Grindr serial killer, and it was covered in a book by Warren, who I interviewed, and he was involved with tons of GHB, and he said he was involved in these parties where they would meet up on gay apps and just do a bunch of drugs and have sex,
Yeah.
So.
There was did you hear about that guy that died recently from that? He was like a weatherman or something. He was a nude guy.
Right. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's the same thing. So he met a dude on Grindr, went to a hotel room, got meth, was in a gimp mask, was on some kind of sex table or something like that, and barfed into his gimp mask and died. I can't remember his name. But yeah, have you heard of Ed Buck? Have you heard of Ed Buck in Los Angeles?
No, who's that?
Ed Buck was a well-known Democrat. Well, he was a fundraiser. He didn't raise that much funds for the Democratic Party, but he has been involved in these types of, he's had 2 dead bodies of black men come out of his apartment in West Hollywood. And in all of the stories of people who've been with him say that it involves GHB, mainlining drugs, gay sex, the whole thing. And so really dangerous kind of behavior with that guy. And there's been rumors that he's been doing it over the country too. So they need to research him. That's a rumor. That's I don't have any facts that he's done that before. But you start looking into these cases. I've talked to people here in Los Angeles, like the Grindr app, like a lot of West Hollywood, there's a subtext of violence and risk involved in that. People get rolled, people get beat up. So a lot of these more recent cases involved gay dating apps. And Stephen Port was on all these gay dating apps under different names. So he was soliciting people, very actively under different names. It was very illegal.
I'm kind of curious.
So, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was kind of curious why the Secret Service would be investigating this. Do they normally investigate?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could call them. I don't think they give you an answer. But typically, the Secret Service has a preset, line of cases that they can cover. I think it's messing with the currency, trafficking, so I think it might be a trafficking issue, or international issue. So it's very interesting that they were both there. So I would highly recommend people for an update to watch. You can watch that Oxygen documentary, 6 documentaries or 6-part series on iTunes for like $10. It's not bad, and it's worth every penny. I think they did a great job, particularly on the Dakota James one. Was off the charts because they brought in a heavyweight who contradicted the medical examination, which also happened in another case called Chris Jenkins in Minneapolis. And in that case, the actual police changed the determination from accidental drowning to either murder or something unusual. So, and that happened in another case on this documentary where they changed the determination of death. So I think the police are catching up, which is
Good.
it's really fantastic. Yeah.
So one of the things that I thought was so interesting about your documentary is about the last half hour of it. You get into kind of the symbolism of the smiley face itself, and you talk about its potential origin in the Watchmen comic and movie, and then you get into some of these bands, including Nine Inch Nails and a video that they did with Peter Christopherson, and I think you also talk about Coil.
Right.
And I just nearly jumped out of my chair when I heard you guys when I heard you talking about that, because I've been doing some work on that subject myself, and I was familiar with those bands from when I was a teenager, and I used to listen to music like that.
Right, throbbing whistle.
Yeah, and I always just thought it was so intriguing and odd and weird and interesting, and I didn't really understand, what the meaning was behind some of the stuff they were flashing. But then a couple years ago, I ended up doing some research into, I guess it started off with some of the kind of Pizzagate stuff. And then I ended up in this trove of information having to do with some Marilyn Manson stuff. And that brought to my mind some of the Coil albums. So I started looking into that. And then I saw for the first time in my life the actual video to Love's Secret Domain, which me and my friends used to dance to at the goth club, and we all, it was one of the creepiest songs I remember, but I never knew what was so creepy about it. Now I see the video, the guy's dancing there at a Thai brothel with little boys.
Yeah, it's not girls, though. They're 12-year-old boys in G-strings, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like gnashing his teeth at them, or the front guy for the band is kind of threatening them with the lyrics to the song while he's watching them dance.
Right.
It's just
His name is John Balance. So John Balance and him are in Coil. But Christopherson, preceding Coil, was with the Robin Crystal.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind, I think you found a really important clue. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and tell us what you found about the Nine Inch Nails video.
Well, the name of the video that was directed by Peter Christopherson was called Broken. Now, Peter Christopherson was part of the kind of avant-garde, cultural, nihilist, post-industrial underground, and very smart guy. His dad was a professor in the UK. But he also, before he even got into videos, he did a lot of album covers. So he did 3 album covers for Peter Gabriel. He did a cover. He actually did Presents for Led Zeppelin that features this weird 2-dimensional black kind of obelisk.
Yeah.
That was very creepy. So he had a real kind of dark occult sensibility because he was a dark occultist. He collected Crowley stuff. And the music was kind of an outlet for a lot of his ideas. And you can see the traces of Crowleyanity and general occultism that flow through there. But I had seen one of his videos, Broken, that really emulated a snuff flick. And when I was studying the Smiley Face Killers, I had remembered that video, and I was like, I got to watch that again. And I realized that video was an encoding of the same MO of what is known as the Smiley Face Killers. They're driving around. They see a young man that fits the exact profile of the victims, the real world victims. He gets abducted, tortured, and he's drowned at the very end. He's actually drowned in a kind of BDSM kind of thing. And I featured that picture from Peter Christopherson on the cover of my documentary because I think there's a potential that these victims are pre-drowned. They're not drowned in the rivers they're found in. And it's a false assumption that clouds the understanding of these cases to say that these are all drowning victims. There's absolutely very little proof that a lot of them are drowned. A lot of not public proof. So they're found in water, but that doesn't mean that they drown there. So that was really the key for me to look into Peter Christopherson and who was that person. And I had known, about Crowleyanity, Crowley's influence. So researching him and having him talk about excrement, and excrement is holy, and there's pictures of him with John Balance smearing their own feces on their face.
Yeah, I was shocked at that.
Yes.
That the whole segment at the end of the documentary, I think you're reading the lyrics or insert notes or something where they're essentially confessing to be killers. They're saying, I am a murderer, and there's photography of them with totally being scatological in the most disgusting way. I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, that...
Right. I mean, and then you get into like the same kind of Crowley idea where the bodily fluids are holy. That was kind of Crowley's sensibility. So yeah, I mean, that thing was that statement being read by John Balance was the kind of ideology of the band, right?
Yeah.
So they were saying all kinds of admissions in that recitation, and there's all kinds. Their visuals involved the black hole sun, Crowley's unicursal hexagram. So even before the internet, really, they were very sophisticated in their kind of black magician, roles and playing it out. And I've always thought about these cases that there's two things about the Smiley Face Killers. It's the advent of real travel where people are traveling often, and also communication over the internet, I think, are both a part of these cases. And that's how I think the MO is learned. But like I was talking about Joey LaBute earlier, that weekend was the weekend where the kind of a big convention took place, which was the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic. So a bunch of bodybuilders come into town. Joey LaBute disappears, and then, I mean, what if you were a perpetrator, you just skip town, right? So,
Exactly.
Yeah, so anyways, Peter Christopherson was networked. He did all these videos for Robert Plant. I mean, just so Pink Floyd, he did visuals for.
Oh, his resume's insane. I couldn't believe his resume. It was insane.
Yeah, amazing stuff, man. Biggest... A lot of well-known. He did something for, what was the Three Boy Band? He did one of their videos. They probably had no
Nelson,
idea
was that what they were called?
What was it?
It was Nelson, wasn't it? Is that what they were called?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he also did Rage Against the Machine's real early videos.
Yeah,
real
I saw
scrappy, nihilistic. And that was really their ideals, the ideals that he had with Genesis P-Orage and their band. They were very post-industrial, mentality, their sensibility, nihilism. And I think they kicked, his real name was Neil Megson, who I think is dying right now, is Genesis Porridge. But they kicked him out of England because he had either real snuff films or fake snuff films recorded, and people called him the wrecker of civilization. So, they have a very remarkable pedigree, and I mean, stop the charts. People don't know about Peter Christopherson, but people in the alternative media should. They should understand him because he was very intelligent, and the way that he blew off steam was just like, he just was not unusual. He was a very unusual person, and I include him right there at the end of the documentary wearing a shirt that says "I'm evil," because I think that really was his sensibility. He was going to really investigate at an intellectual level all of the aspects of being an evil person.
Yeah, transgression to the max. I agree.
Exactly.
That's the vibe. Yeah, maximum transgression. This completely inverted concept of
exactly that very few people would ever want to do or give themselves over to. But I think him and John Balance went that way, and John Balance went insane. Seemed to go insane, and woke up in the morning drinking wine. God only knows what kind of evil stuff they were involved in. But he supposedly fell off a ledge and died. That's the story they're telling. And then Peter Christopherson died at a fairly young age in Thailand, where one of these weird cases happened. Not at the same time, but both of them are dead. But they left a record, I think, that people who are studying the occult, not for an occultist purpose, but just to see what these guys think, really should look into.
Do you think that people kind of find it hard to believe that artists who do disturbing imagery in their art, in their music, would actually go ahead and do it? And
yes.
To me, it was hard for me to get over. And then I had to think, well, why is it hard for me to get over? And it's because I would think that if I was doing a crime, I would want to hide it and not let everyone know. And so you think, like, why would you write a song about it after you just did something like that? But really, it's a way of hiding in plain sight.
Right.
And then the other thing too is if there's an occult aspect to this, which I mean, that's all it is. It's an act of occult. It's a magic act. Then letting people know in a almost in your face way and just daring them to take you seriously, that might be part of it. Part of the sacrifice.
Well, I would agree with that. And I think you make an excellent point, is that they use different language. And I think the smiley face symbol and some of these other symbols are a way to communicate to fellow travelers what is going on without ever admitting anything, right? So if people see the smiley face tag, they go, okay, I get it. You know, the other people who are into that stuff understand it. So I do believe, and if you look at like the broader context of criminal groups, whether they're gangs, Crips, Bloods, Latin Kings, they all have these symbols, you know, these symbols that they mark themselves, tattoo themselves with. If you see these smiley face tattoos, they're all over the place. D. Antwoord, this one band guy, he's a well-known rapper. I mean, it just goes on and on. You'll just see all these people that have, in addition to other occult symbology, have this smiley face. So,
have you caught what's going on with Die Antwoord recently, Bill? Have you seen that?
I heard that there's even more crazy stuff these guys are involved in, you know. So.
Die Antwoord, allegedly the singer, the main male figure, his name's Ninja, and he had like a little 15-year-old underage understudy, and got high on mushrooms, pretended to be demon possessed, and sexually took advantage of her, and she was keeping it on the down low, and now she's bringing it out in the press, and.
Yeah, I heard about her. Yeah.
Sorry to jump in, but I just want to say she's 20, and they're going around suing everybody who's talking about this. So just want to put that in there. She was 20.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Those are all speculative and alleged. We don't know them.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I wasn't there, certainly. Right. So
okay, well, neither was I. So
and, I was going to.
That was the alleged story. But I actually did hear that came to my attention. Yeah. So he has the 23 Enigma tattooed on his shoulder, which goes back to Burroughs, and actually the smiley face goes back to Burroughs. Burroughs used the smiley face, which is why I think Nirvana used the smiley faces. Cobain's affinity for Burroughs. Do you know that Cobain and Burroughs did an album together?
No.
I remember that one.
Yeah, they did some really underground work together. There's pictures of Cobain with Burroughs. And Burroughs is supposedly, I don't really know that much, but I was told that he was like one of the early writers as a gay revolutionary. This whole idea that the gay culture is an elite culture, that they can do, kind of do what they want, kind of like Crowley. And so that was some of his writing, which, ties in. And somebody has sent me some incredible stuff. There are gay writers out there who have views that, these young men are their, ideal partners, whether willing or unwilling. So,
yeah, it's their harvest, exactly. I've seen
it.
Ginsberg,
so
the whole
different sensibility that nobody would ever know.
Yeah.
But you start reading some of these gay, nihilistic literature. I can't remember the guy's name offhand, but it is off the charts. It's unbelievable because it fits right in with the ideology that would inform somebody to do these types of crimes, this type of crime.
Are you talking about Hakeem Babe by any chance?
No, I know that guy. He's an occultist. No, I'll see if I can find his name.
But Allen Ginsberg might be the name. I remember somebody giving me a book of poetry of Allen Ginsberg's and reading through it. And, like some normal kind of far out beat poetry, and then like really hardcore gay erotica, and specifically focused on young men,
there's a video of him at a NAMBLA conference, writing poems about young men. So.
Yeah, Ginsberg, and those guys all, and the whole, I saw it's either in the documentary or otherwise. I was absolutely shocked to realize to what depth science fiction in general is kind of painted into this boy love NAMBLA ping pong pizza corner. Like all of science fiction, like the same accusations are put against, who's the man? 2001 Space Odyssey, his name slips.
Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, Arthur C. Clarke, they were going to give him a big award and pulled it back because he was over there in Sri Lanka playing ping pong and openly soliciting boys and not ashamed, not hiding it at all, so.
There was a article that was suppressed that I included in my book, Children of the Beast. It was totally suppressed by the government in the UK, where he admits, I just pay him a little bit of money. They'll do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Like he's flat out saying that is his class. And he supported the ping pong club. That's where he would go to, predate on these Sri Lankan kids.
Yeah, it seems like
it's always ping pong.
Yeah.
Yeah, ping pong. Well, there's an interesting scene in Kubrick's Lolita where there's a ping pong scene. So it seems to be a symbol, a known symbol in that community. And Pizzagate was never properly investigated. And there are some of the videos that are taken inside of Comet Ping Pong have people wearing smiley face symbology. So it's there, it's there. And people on that Instagram account, nobody ever mentioned it. Not his, but his friends, Elephantis' friends, have all kinds of smiley face symbols. So pretty dark stuff, man.
I've gotten the impression that the ping pong thing indicates a group situation where you've got the victim in the middle and then two perpetrators on either end, basically.
So I've been.
That's not too graphic, but
Well, that's putting it nicely. Yeah. I mean,
Oh yeah, that's
just laughing nervously here. But
I'm
now,
trying to find this guy. Yeah, if I can find his name. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, it's fine.
I just wanted to ask, like, has any, I guess most of these cases there aren't autopsies because they're assuming that they're drowned, right? So,
Correct.
but I mean, yeah, have they found any evidence of these guys being raped? Or I know there's some evidence of torture, like cigarette burns and things like that.
Right. Well, it's a tough aspect of these cases is because there's supposed to be a state mandated medical exam on anybody, but the question is how authentic they are. If you look at this case of Dakota James, the thing isn't even correct. You had a foreigner guy, Shu Wang or whatever his name was, doing a lousy job. And how common is that? How common is that for all of these cases? You don't know. So, I mean, in the McNeil case, the family waited 10 years to get the autopsy. When they got it, they found out their kid had been blowtorched in the upper body, and the cops never told the family that. Wow. So it looked like he had been in a chair being blowtorched, just like the broken video. And the same thing happened with Chris Jenkins. So when the families get these autopsies, and there's even cases just this year where the same thing has happened in Austin, where they get this medical exam that's just totally different. So when, I've had the unfortunate contact with some of these families, when they start asking questions, what happened, I say, always get the autopsy report. That'll tell you something. But the police won't tell anything. So the cops are keeping something very close to their chest on this one. The gay author's name is Dennis Cooper.
okay.
And,
Thank you.
Yeah, look him up. He has a blog spot. But this guy, I mean, there's a picture somebody sent me of Dennis Cooper, and I'll see if I can post this. But it's like the guy that he's with looks like your standard smiley face killer victim.
Yeah, is it true, William, that you have some kind of legal background? I thought I remembered hearing that.
Yeah, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
So that's Dennis Cooper with his boy. Look at his boyfriend. He looks like the standard skinny smiley face killer victim, doesn't he? You're smearing.
The guy on the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, even thinner.
Read his book. So he's influenced by Burroughs, Rimbaud, also a gay poet, Rimbaud.
Hey.
I forgot who else.
Is there any way we can see the right side of the screen there?
I'm trying to adjust it. It jumped me to full screen as soon as Bill shared, so that should be. I'm almost there to fix it. So let's.
There it is.
Let's try that.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. We've only recently started using Zoom, and we love it. It's worth the money, but all the functionality is not 100% yet. But is that showing it to everybody there? Nope, I changed it back there. That should be. But like you said,
Zoom is so much better than YouTube. It's not even comparable.
Yeah, exactly. So I do need some time to sit and practice with it a little bit more, but I'm already way happier to.
Did you get that picture? Do you want me to post it again?
Yeah, just leave it there for a sec. We can see it. I think the body language there is just fascinating. What the guy on the right looks like, and then how the guy on the left is just smiling. Yeah, he's like has a hand over his mouth to cover the fact that he's smiling about it. It could, who knows? He could just be like, hey, look,
Right. If you read his stuff, this guy's stuff, I was told it's just like super, corruption, that kind of gay, avant-garde, heroin user, that kind of mentality. So, yeah.
Do you ever see people on Twitter threatening other people in a covert way? Like now that my eyes are open to this, I see it a lot, especially on certain accounts.
Tell me more. What do you mean by that?
Like dropping hints to people that they're trying to intimidate. People that might be a future victim or something.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I think that Jim Smith has seen things where these people are being told stuff, or there's a very strange text being sent at off times by some of these people, or they've gotten text like, "This is a beautiful full moon." So that's kind of a taunting aspect. Whether they're outright being threatened or like something's bad is going to happen, I've never seen anything like that that's really that overt. But I was ashamed that none of these Grindr accounts are ever subpoenaed and figure out who these people are. Because I think if they could solve one of these cases, they could solve 10 of them. Just like Stephen Fort. Because if you can get one guy who's committing this murder, you can trace him back and see if he's done it before, right? So it's the same thing. This guy, have you heard of the McAdams deaths in Toronto? Where a guy was a predator in the gay community. Once they traced one person, they actually arrested him while he had a victim, a young man, tied up on his bed.
Wow!
He literally had abducted somebody and tied him on his bed. But if you look up that case, it fits like my perpetrator typology to a T. He had kind of older victims, but people had all of those missing person signs up on street lights and sides, like, where is this person? And people didn't know where they went, and when they traced it back, they found out the dude had killed like 10 people.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just so mind-blowing. Like the confessions and depositions, the filmed, that stuff is just bone-chilling in that documentary of yours, Bill. Watching those cops work those guys and getting them to confess to what they actually did. I just turned it off for a little while. Like, man, that's so... I think you're right, though, that the veil of silence... I think once somebody tumbles, there's probably an opportunity for a lot more progress to be made.
Yeah, I think so. I hope the cops are looking in that sensibility. I mean, I'm just an armchair researcher. I don't have resources like they do. The FBI's yearly resources are $9 billion. So they have means and ways to look under the surface that only I can't see. So I hope that eventually they figure out what's going on. And I think it's a shame, too, that they haven't really warned the public. I've tried to get the message out, but I really think it's the government's responsibility to warn people. But there's a lot of other interests that are preventing that from happening. I don't think they want to panic the public, and I don't think they want to dissuade people from going to these colleges where a lot of these people are victims, or most of them. So I think that, it's a very odd kind of situation where some information really isn't getting out.
Well, it might connect with the general roadblock that we've noticed with like research we've been doing and people that we're watching, where if it ties into this trafficking thing at all,
right,
then all of a sudden you can't get any cooperation. Like, everyone wants to act like it's fake. You're going to get censored with YouTube and Twitter, and then if you go to the authorities, you get, I don't know, I've experienced, because I've tried, a very weird interaction where they're kind of blowing you off and not encouraging you at all. They don't even want to hear the information you've got. And yet you get the vibe from the way that they respond that they know exactly what you're talking about. They've got their own files about it, but they just don't want to acknowledge it.
Right. No, I've had that same experience. I gave up calling the cops. I used to, in like 2016, I was calling some of these police departments trying to inquire about some of these deaths. And it was pulling teeth, man. Who are you? What do you want? I can't comment. After you get that over and over again, it's like, no way. There's my cat.
Yeah, we got animals all around here too, man.
But yeah, so I've had that same experience, and it's interesting. Like, if you look at the Dakota James case, they basically said, show us proof that he was murdered. So they pushed the investigation on the family. It's off the chart. So, and if you look at the Stephen Fort case, the way that he was caught was it was a family member nagging and cajoling and pestering the cops for the CCTV video. And when they got that video, they said, who's that guy with my brother? Who's that guy? And that guy turned out to be Stephen Fort. And then they started unwinding it. Who else have you been with, Steve? Where are these other people? And they figured out, they don't know how many people that guy may have killed. They got him for 4. he could have wasted 20, 30 people. They'll never know. So it's crazy to think that these cases, you're in a situation where the government is not working alongside these families. But I would be very nervous if I was the government, because the mothers of these victims aren't going away. They're not going anywhere. So I would just keep an eye out as these cases progress. They are still progressing. It's all it takes is one pull of one string and one investigation, and everything could easily unwind.
So
It would take. Don't you think this kind of crime that just takes a lot of nerve to do? I mean, wouldn't you be afraid of getting caught, especially if they're doing it over and over again? You know.
But if you look at some of these cases, so there was a girl. Her name is Elise Soper, and she wrote about the drowning cases just in Boston alone. There's like 30 cases in Boston, 30 in New York, and she had a blog called Cryptid Antiquarian. So if you were researching Smiley Face Killers, I would recommend looking at her posts, because her posts are really good, but also because there were like 2,000 comments on those posts where people are going, this is not legit. These are not accidental drownings. And then people started to tell their stories where they were solicited, where people came up to them and said, hey, can I buy you a drink? Where do you go to school? They get skeezed out. They start getting freaked out. So I do think that these guys are clever enough. Let's see, it's a two-pronged thing. You have the clever perpetrators and the obtuse police who say nothing's happening, these are accidental deaths, which allow the predation to continue, right? So if you don't have somebody looking at it, the predators probably thought this is a cakewalk, right? Because nobody's ever going to think what happened. So they figure out the steps that need to be taken. And this happens when men drug women too, right? So that's the known thing is date rape drugs, where the guy's probably like Cosby. How did he do it for so long, right? He had it down to a science. Hey, do you want to come? And same with he and Weinstein were very similar. Do you want to come talk about your career? Like, he knew the kind of key things to say. Come on in, have a seat. I'm going to have myself a drink. Would you like a drink? Right? So he had the steps down to abuse. And the people who are committing this crime probably have the steps down. And they probably have had trial runs that they never got busted with. And there are two situations in Gilbertson and Gannon's book where guys ended up in the hospital. They don't know how they got there, but it's pretty clear that they were drugged, but they didn't end up as victims. So there's probably tons of cases, and people are talking about those cases now. There's a comedian, his name is Tom Dillon, Dillon. He runs a podcast, and he recently had a guy who claims to be somebody who survived the Smiley Face Killings, a guy who said he was out, he got drugged, and he woke up next to a river.
Wow.
You gotta take it with a grain of salt, but still the guy seems legit. Why is he telling a story? So, these facts are coming out in different places. Unfortunately, the shortcoming of a documentary is that you can't put in all that secondary and tertiary research because, it's just too much information. But there's a ton of information on my YouTube channel. I've done so many interviews with Jim Smith and covered so many of the individual cases and interviewed a lot of people about the Smiley Face Killings. So if you go to William Ramsey Investigates, you can just see it, and it's all dated, so you can see how my investigation is progressing. My understanding is getting better and better over time. So I would suggest.
So, Bill, do you have a legal background? Is that right?
I'm a member of the State Bar of California, so I did go to law school. I did practice law. I'm still an inactive member. I still pay my dues.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure because I don't want to say that, that you are a lawyer or be telling people that. I thought that was true. And I just want you to know that your presentation definitely comes off that way. And I think it's a very good thing for any and all of your work. I've looked at a lot of your stuff. I remember listening to the Cortez readings that you did. And I think I found you through Jason Horsley on the Liminal List. Your Bill's interviews about Crowley with Horsley on the Liminal List are just great. It's just really good conversational stuff. What do you want to go over for the audience? What you discovered about the meaning of the actual smiley face? I don't think we managed to get that far.
So when I was researching the book about Crowley's influence, so tracing his influence through the gay movement, through modern culture, through music, Page, Osborne, through the cultural people, Leary, Alan Moore is one of the people I came across, and he uses this smiley face. It pops up really prevalently. It's a key component in the Watchmen series. And this comedian, who's one of the main characters who gets killed, is this guy who uses the smiley face. And actually, I think it goes back to Burroughs, but I really came across it through Moore. And that smiley face, he had all of these things. I think that Moore, as he said, there's documentaries about Moore. And in one of those documentaries, he says, I'm half a writer, and he's done a lot of, he's probably the most famous graphic novelist in the world, most successful. He says he's half a graphic novelist and half a magician. So he's studying the occult. He knows the occult. He's had rituals. He's been in contact with entities by his own admission. And he's clearly integrating stuff into all of his stuff. And a lot of his material involves things that the occult, From Hell, whether it's V for Vendetta, whether it's where he quote the protagonist quotes Crowley, "Do what thou wilt," whether it's the Watchmen. So getting back to the Watchmen, this comedian, there's a sequence in the Watchmen where the comedian is a person who goes to Vietnam and kills because it's a big joke, and it tied into some of these occult ideas, particularly Crowley, that reality in the universe is a big joke. Kind of like just like what you posted earlier today about the Joker, which was the laughing joke, was also written by Alan Moore, right? This kind of grinning anti-hero, the Joker. So I think this conceptual ideas behind the comic are very similar to a lot of these deaths, is that they can commit them because it's a big joke. So that's probably the occult tie into at least some of these murders where that symbol is used. So, and then it goes on because it's integrated in so many elements of common culture, movies. The new version of It has a smiley face at the intro. The ending of Stranger Things, the season 8, where they see the Demogorgon. There's a smiley face right there. So they kind of know that this symbol has a dark, there's an esoteric and an exoteric meaning. And the esoteric meaning is a darker meaning. And you can go have fun unpacking Stranger Things, but I'm pretty sure they've listened to a number of my talks because they put in all kinds of stuff. 77, they put in the West Memphis 3 information. Demogorgon is one of the 77 names of Satan that is in, what's his name? One of these occult, the Satanic Bible by LaVey. So, they were pretty sharp about some of their more occult references. The first season, they referenced 77 11s. And that girl's name is 11, actually.
Yeah.
Kind of magic girl's name is 11, the number of magic. So, anyway.
So, hey, I've got your book, by the way.
Hey,
and, this is where I first heard about you, this book. And it was really,
Well,
it was really an eye-opener because, there we go. Sorry.
It was originally just a manuscript. That's why I kept it 8x10. Now the new version is 6x9. It'll fit on your bookshelf, but thank you.
So yeah, all these numbers that you're mentioning, 11, 77, 93, and 175, these are all numbers associated with 9/11, and then you show how Aleister Crowley had lots to say about the meaning of each one of these numbers, and then you even tie it into the Bush family. And I get the idea from what you've written and other things you've said that you're one of the people that believes that there is a biological connection there between Aleister Crowley and the Bush family. Is that right?
Well, that's a good question. I think, looking at all the facts, what makes the most sense, even though I have no evidence, is that the arranged marriage of George H.W. Bush, the senior, and Barbara Bush was an arranged marriage, knowing that she was the offspring of Aleister Crowley from her mother, Pauline Robinson, who was in France at that same time Crowley was, and was alleged to be a servitor while Crowley was doing one of his rituals called ECL, Erato Comatose Lucidity, and it required servitors. So I think that the times and dates, sensibilities, ideas, all fit together, that they're actually kind of this elite, something out of a science fiction movie where they were put together for breeding purposes because they believe that the best genes and this kind of mentality is really ideal. So I think that it all fits together. 9/11, the dates, the occultism of the Bush family, the skull and bones, the fact that the numbers are used in sequence in such a very intelligent manner. 1177, the Liber Oz, the numbers of the devil, the fact that 93 is really a Crowley number. It references in the Kabbalah to two supreme concepts within his religion, Thelema and Agape, will and love, right? Love under law, love under will. But then the 175 is even more sharp because it goes back into this notion of people who love Satan, that they adore him. The adoration of Satan. You'll see that in common culture. It's a common phrase. And so, and that's supposed to be like a ritual. It's a ritual act. So then you can kind of look into the broader context that 9/11 was a very sophisticated mega ritual involving occultism to make change in conformance with the magician's will. And that change was really a global change, New World Order change that family was interested in promulgating.
Well, this is the same mentality that you're describing with the Smiley Face Killers, really, right? To kill so many people for some ritual purpose and then, laugh about it afterwards. They're laughing. And it's like, so that would explain then why the Secret Service is investigating this subject, or rather perhaps investigating people who are investigating it. And
that's an excellent point. I'm glad you made that statement.
Well, it's okay. So on the one hand, you've got this, criminal case that or ongoing set of criminal cases that you're studying that someone could look into without knowing anything about conspiracy theories and just take it totally seriously and never really have to get off into the weirder subjects in order to understand what's going on there. But then it's got to connect to this other stuff because, so people think about Crowley. If people have ever really spent a lot of time studying him, and especially if you've ever, dipped your toe into any of these groups that he started and that continue to basically worship him.
Give me 1 sec. Hold on.
Sure.
Yep. You can keep going, Tracy, or I could just cover for a second. It's all right.
I'll do that. Okay, yeah. It's like you don't think of these people as being the Illuminati, right? You don't think of them as being the big conspiracy, the controlling the world, because you just think of them. Well, you can see them influencing these kind of weird bands that we're talking about, like Coil and stuff, and definitely Crowley has had some influence in pop culture, and so the armchair researcher will find that out pretty quickly, but you still might find it hard to believe that, like, the people that are actually controlling the world might be into Aleister Crowley's magic too.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you restate that?
Sure. I'm just I said it in a long-winded way for the audience, but really all I was just saying, like, when you meet OTO people, for instance, your first impression is not that these are the people controlling the world. Right. And you might think that you can see them easily influencing weird bands and weird artists. But you don't think of Aleister Crowley being the grandfather of the future, or great-grandfather, I guess, of the future president. But then you just explained how it could have happened, and there's actually a bloodline to trace there. There's actually a story to follow that makes it all make sense. It's not just that they look similar with their facial features. There's a reason to believe that they could be related. And then if you were to take that seriously, then you look at the weird things that have happened in the Bush presidencies and look at the numerology and the symbolism, consider the Aleister Crowley influence, and it all falls into place. It's mind-boggling, but I think you're right.
Right, and that date, 2001, was such an important date. It was really a nexus point, a confluence of so many different things that, and those years of Bush were really incredible. There was all kinds of wars and social upheaval and the literal pumping and dumping of the entire economy in 2008. I believe they did it intentionally. I don't think that was some random event.
No, absolutely engineered.
Zero under Bush, and then deragged and then knew that the docks were all crap and that the whole thing was going to go down in a big old furnace, a massive dumpster fire. Because people then would be interested in trying to save their house and their butts instead of tracing any illegalities or criminality that was involved. So it all fits together. There's not proofs. I don't have proofs. But if you put that picture of Barbara Bush right up next to Crowley, it's a freaking carbon copy. I'm sorry to say that. They both have big, blocky heads. Crowley was of Irish descent. So, you know, these things fit together. And you can see that pattern of how that the Bush family's influence on so many events, so many not very savory events, drug dealing and all kinds of stuff. I honestly don't have a lot of proofs, but all the notions. Crowley himself, if you really research Crowley, he didn't really care if he had like out of wedlock kids. Somebody came to him later in life and said, "I want you to have my son." He said, "Sure, whatever, I'll do that." He had children that, I think one of them, he said, "Oh, she'll make a nice whore," like real.
Of course.
He was never a parent. He never was around it. Well, it gets worse than that. I mean, there's some discoveries they made on one of his more recent books where he was raping his 2-year-old kid and his wife was doing it too. It's like he wrote that in Magical Record of the Beast, 666. So it's not a pretty tie, and it fits right in with a lot of this infant abuse ideas and stuff like that. So it's really grim. Crowley is a very evil person. I call it prophet of evil for a reason. But you know, if it's will over right and wrong, if it's your will, whether it's triumph of the will like Hitler, you know, things go wrong. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if the people who are perpetrating the Smiley Face Killers crimes are, you know, triumph of the will types. Do without will types.
I think I told you that I saw on Instagram an art display that was pictures of it were being posted by people who were in the now modern manifestation of the Process Church, and a lot of them are holdovers from the original one. So they were having this art show, and there's a painting in there of Barbara and Aleister Crowley hanging out together. So it's almost like these people that I think would have some direct insight into whether or not that theory was true are making a joke about it.
Right. Well, that's it. So then you see the insider joke, which is probably the use of the smiley face. Do you ever see the meeting of Ozzy Osbourne with George Bush where he was at the White House?
I don't think I did.
Yeah, if you can find that video, it's very important because George Bush is talking to Osbourne, and Osbourne gets up and makes the Masonic healing sign to George Bush. He puts his hands over his head and starts waving his hands. So he makes this Masonic sign to George Bush, and then Junior starts talking to him. He goes, "Sabbath, buddy, Sabbath. Children, war pigs. Hey, Ozzy, Mom loves your stuff." And he just basically references, it's like a little inside joke. So you can find that online where he says Mom loves. The full video isn't there. So there's all kinds of little things. George Bush Sr. is wearing the 77 hat. He's got the 77 number on the George Bush aircraft carrier. They're wearing purple, the imperial colors, you know. And interesting, in some of those pictures that I included in Prophet of Evil, you would think that George Bush Sr. would be the very center of the picture, of the frame, but it's not. It's her. So, you know, she's not the president. Why is she the center in some of these pictures? So I think there's a lot of inside stuff there. And if you listen to her, like her comments after, I think it was Katrina, where she had very Crowley similar statements about peasants, you know? Oh, yeah, this is good for them. All those African Americans are fighting for their life in the stadium, you know? And she's like, "Oh, this is good for them." They're in the
She said it was a great opportunity for them. I remember.
Right. Yeah. She said, and like I actually quoted in the Prophet of Evil where she was talking to Larry King, and she said, "Well, as far as my kids go, Barr and George and all these people, whoever messes with them, I'll kill you." I not said that on TV. So. Wow. Yeah, it's incredible, and if somebody can find that video, it's probably just totally memory old now. But
Tracy, didn't we play a video where she comes on during Halloween as a witch? Have you seen that?
Yeah, have you ever seen her where she's talking to people and she's like using the mesmerism techniques where she doesn't blink?
No,
you
I
ever hear
didn't.
the story where she had the fetus of one of her kids in a jar?
Yeah.
Oh yes.
It's
I mean, it just gets
crazy.
weirder and weirder. It doesn't get better.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
We should do a whole show just on Barbara Bush. Isn't it?
Hey man, then you get into Skull and Bones. They have a private library. You know, they're involved in the Grove at the Bohemian Grove. They're hanging out on all these illegal cult stuff. Imagine what George Bush Jr. grew up in. You know, his dad's a master spy, high level occultist. You know, you don't. I mean, the guy was trained. I mean, yeah. I mean, you can just go into it. Do you ever hear the album Rio Grande Blood by Ministry?
No, I'm familiar with Ministry, but I've never listened to
I mean,
it.
you gotta watch that. It's incredible. Oh my God! Listen to the song "Rio Grande Blood." It takes one to know one because they wrote some stuff about Crowley too. The Psalm 69, which was taken from Crowley's Book of Lies.
Yeah, I know that. I know that song. Yeah, that's. I was going to point that out earlier when you were pointing out the fact that it is. It seems like the more layers you peel back of the onion skin, the more synchronicities and connections you find, and it's no coincidence that Al Jurgensen and Ministry and there's another industrial band from that time. They were in your documentaries to slip in my mind, but it's Ministry and another one, and Coil's kind of in the same group. The fact that they're making songs that are on their surface they appear to be the polar opposite of the current government, but then you get into where we all are in searching and looking, and it's like, oh no, it's like a commercial. You know, Ministry's like a commercial for the Bush administration's wars and their occultism.
Dude, you got to listen to the album Rio Grande Blood. Do you know that it was nominated for a Grammy?
No, I'm going to have to check this out.
Yeah, it was nominated for a Grammy. I can't remember what year it is. I'll have to look it up. Listen, guys, I got to take like a 10-minute break. I'll come back, but I just got to go run an errand real quick.
Yeah, no problem. We'll just keep you rolling. We'll keep rolling.
Thank you.
This guy fits in perfect. He knows exactly what to do. This is the part where Jim, if it was just me and Jim back in the day, you guys, this is the part where Jim would grab his phone or his tablet, open it, and start reading jokes because I would hold it as long as I could, and then I'd run off to the bathroom like, I gotta go, Jim. And then
Here you go. You're on.
And then Jim would read some jokes on his phone. So, but you were gonna say something, Tracy? Go ahead.
Oh no, I don't know when that album came out, but I do remember the song NWO, which probably came out in like '94. And you know, he's got the scratchy voice going on. He's screaming. You can't really understand everything he's saying, but I remember him saying he's like describing, you know, wars, I think, and kind of dystopian future of the New World Order. And then there's this line where he's saying, I watched the destruction through the eyes of a clown. That part I could hear. And so I remember when I heard that song, and I knew those guys were into magic and Aleister Crowley. And I already knew about, you know, I was a teenager, but I had already heard about like Masonic conspiracy theories and the New World Order and stuff. And I just thought that this song was occultists laughing about what the big occult conspiracy is. And so even though, the way that they look, the way they dress, the crowd that they appealed to, you would think that that's kind of the counterculture and therefore maybe the anti-government crowd, or at least the establishment crowd. But I don't know what they would say now in an interview, but I took that song at the time when I first heard it as laughing praise and enjoyment of the horrible reality that the New World Order was creating, you know? And so, and not that I thought necessarily they were part of it, but it was almost like they were being spokesmen for it, you know?
Right, and it seems like, man, I thought it was just earlier today, it slipped my mind, but something similar where we,
So
Okay,
carry
there
on.
we go. We're back.
Sorry,
Sorry,
guys.
folks. Jim was trying to solve a camera problem, and if you don't add the microphone, sometimes you'll find us dead in the water, a little bit of dead air. We apologize. If you didn't catch it last week, we added a second mouse and keyboard so that we could overcomplicate the control of the behind-the-scenes switchboard, and it is such a good time to now share instead of doing it all by myself. But yeah, that's what happened. And I did this once before. If you've been with us a few episodes, you definitely recognize this oops on the microphone kick. But we're back now, and thank you so much for always letting us know. I remember one time, my girlfriend called me on the show. She's like, the mic's not on, but it looks like we've got it fixed.
Hey, can I share the Raisin Bran box with everybody?
Yes, please. Ladies and gentlemen, Tracy Twyman on generic Raisin Bran.
Okay, so yes, this is a Kroger generic Raisin Bran.
Yeah, hold on, let's get you full screen there. Can you get her on the full screen?
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
Okay, so that's what the front of the box looks like. Rather ordinary. And here's the back, which I will read to you in a minute. And let's see if I can get in. I have to.
So there's definitely
The actual
pyramid
there we
there.
go. Okay, so
Bill's going to be disappointed he missed this.
you see the Illuminati pyramid there.
Yeah,
I'll just go ahead and read this to you.
What did you say the pyramid says? I forgot.
It says "Mwahaha." So here's what it says. You know what they say: flake it till you make it. So they may actually say, fake it till you make it. But what do they know? And who are they anyway? The masses and majorities? The Illuminati? Thurston, quote, Danger Pants McGillicuddy III? And why, just, what? And why promote fake when there's a whole wide world of flake? Crispy, cravey, light and wavy flakes. Scrumptious, crunchous, righteous, delicious flakes. Yummers in your tummers, flaky when you wakey. Flakes. I mean, is that a weed reference? Flaky when you wakey for kids when they're eating their breakfast. So come on, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your appetite. When hunger calls, you've got to flake it till you make it.
That is so weird. That's what I was talking about. That reminded me because we were talking about the Denver airport weirdness. How they brought like, if you haven't seen it, folks, they've got like a talking gargoyle joking about the Illuminati at the Denver airport, which is also a location so replete with weird satanic occultism that, like, if you don't know about it and you're watching our show, we don't know how you haven't heard till now. But I would say the fact that they're bringing it out even stronger at Denver, and then the weirdness of the cereal box, it's like we're going through this huge group initiation into the externalization of the hierarchy. They're revealing their method. They're like, hey, we're going to come full circle and bring you into the big joke. The big smiley face joke is, ha ha, the whole world's run by Satanist Illuminists. And even on your General Mills cereal box. I can't believe it. I really can't.
So I wonder if all of these references are on purpose or if they're just a subconscious sort of reference to the thing. I mean, there's a lot of smiley face references in movies that Bill was talking about, and is that do the people that put that stuff in the TV, in the media, are they aware of what it means, do you think, or is it sort of a subconscious dark thing that they're picking up on?
I think we can have Bill clarify for himself, but I think he might not be necessarily saying that every smiley face has this dark occult meaning, or it may actually have an origin like that, but it's a context thing. So it's when you see this particular graffiti next to a place where some guy disappeared and later was found in the exact same manner of turning up weeks later in a river, And it's a accumulation of evidence over time after you see it over and over again that this is a clue to the fact that these things are connected. And it's also a clue to what is the motivation, to who's doing it and what's the motivation. It's not a very specific one. It's very vague. And of course it's vague enough to be deniable. Like, you see all sorts of things. You see For a Good Time Call, and you see gang graffiti, and you see swastikas and things like that. So all of those things could be very sinister in a different context.
Well, do you remember that obscure...
This is sinister because of the context.
Do you remember that obscure movie, what was it called? With Tom Hanks, where he was, he did all that stuff. I forgot the name of the movie. Just slipped my mind.
You read the running Tom Hanks. So it must be the one with the box of chocolates.
Yeah, the box of chocolates.
Forrest Gump. Yeah,
Forrest Gump. Thank you. Forrest Gump. There was a happy face, smiley face T-shirt that he invented, and also.
Oh, really? Was there a smiley face in Forrest Gump?
Yeah, he was running across the country, and somebody gave him a T-shirt, a failed T-shirt designer
that's right.
gave him a shirt, and he wiped his face on it, and what ended up happening is it made a happy face, a smiley face on the shirt, and the guy sold him and became a millionaire.
Hey, and then
supposedly
the dang volleyball's a smiley face too.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we're finding some extra smiley faces here.
Well, I was also thinking about the ping pong in Forrest Gump. He was a ping pong champion.
That's true.
It's another reference to this weird stuff.
And to clarify for what I'm not saying for sure, but I think what Jim's getting at is that obviously sometimes intentional symbology is placed in things, and a lot of people might miss that or overlook it. Oh yeah, so we're here, Bill, to catch you up. We're still kind of coming back to the smiley face point.
Okay.
Jim, I don't know if you can see Jim. Jim's sitting here too.
I saw him. Yeah.
So I was trying to screen share, but it was messing us up. But he was pointing out that in Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks wipes his face and it makes a smiley face on the T-shirt.
Right.
And we were speculating as to whether or not the symbolism is always intentional and encoded, or if sometimes it's not just like a subconscious bubbling over, or it becomes not necessarily 100% coincidence, but also not an intentional occult symbol,
Yeah, well, it wasn't really dark in Forrest Gump, but like in the movie It was kind of an ominous thing. So
right. Or Stranger Things. So I think you have to look at it in context, If you saw an 11 at a football game, the likelihood that somebody's trying to hit you with a magical number is very low. But in some of these Hollywood movies, like if you watch Oliver Stone's movies, he knows the numerology, man. If you watch the intro to Natural Born Killers, he has like a thing of 77 Sunset Strip. All kinds of 666. It's something else. Especially also his movie World Trade Center. Have you ever watched World Trade Center?
Never have.
There's like 93s and all kinds of stuff. The firemen are wearing 11s. He's got he knows the numerology. It's incredible.
Yeah, I know a little bit about him. I've talked to some family members of his. He definitely knows.
Usually, he's probably part of one of those secret groups, the Yale groups.
So, you have some stuff about Process Church on your Vimeo account. I noticed that. Do you have a documentary about that, or?
Well, I did some research. I researched a guy by the name of Timothy Wiley, who was really the number 3 guy at the Process Church, and I included a segment about the Process Church in my book, Children of the Beast, because it really was an offshoot of Scientology, a much more darker kind of more. It was just like a not for the masses like Scientology was. But it was definitely a cult that was influenced by that stuff. I think the woman died, but the man, his name was Moore. I think he actually lived in New York. I don't know if he's dead yet. Timothy Wiley recently died in the last couple of years, but he was an interesting case study. So I included some video about him, and you can see him kind of log rolling with other known kind of occultists or people in that in that milieu. If you
It's a
want,
great
you know,
metaphor,
chatting.
Bill.
So,
I want that metaphor to stick around. That's a great metaphor. Occultist log rolling together. We need some
Yeah.
memes, folks. If you're up for making some memes, definitely put like Crowley and Johnny Depp on a log or whatever. You know, Crowley and
well, they help each other out. You can tell they're just like serving up softballs for, you know,
Yeah.
not difficult questions. So,
Well, while you were
Yeah, so-
gone, Tracy read the back of a cereal box that she has there, and it's just like a generic Raisin Bran box, but it's got like Illuminati symbolism on it. It's got the pyramid and like all this strange, almost enchanted kind of goofy poetic language. And it's so in our face in comparison to how it used to be, even, I would say, even 5 years ago. I mean, all of us that have been doing this for a while can recognize 10, 15, you know, even more. The stuff wasn't out there. You had to dig hard. The internet wasn't as accessible, so you had to really look around and start referencing, reading citations, and asking around, you know. But now,
Yeah,
like
good point.
literally on the back of a generic cereal box, Tracy, while you stepped away, she read it out for us, and it's a trip.
There's an actual joke about the Illuminati, yeah, on the cereal.
oh, right. Well, I don't
So
know
do you-
what to say.
Do you believe what the guy from the Ultimate Evil? I'm forgetting his name right now, but like he had
Maury Terry?
Maury Terry. Okay, so he was thinking like Process Church got into this this hitman business, and they were going around
the
killing people.
Metzger,
Yeah.
Manson too. I think that they were. I think that the guy who was busted for the Son of Sam murders was part of a cult. Yeah, so I think that they were hanging out at Untermeyer Park in New York, and that there were tendrils that went from there, probably all over the country, but reached all the way to Stanford University Chapel, where Arliss Perry was murdered. I wrote an article about that murder because I grew up in Palo Alto. So I used to actually know the priest who was like family friend, who was the priest at the time that she was ritually killed. And the rumor was they moved her body, and only the people on the inside knew, but she was found on the altar.
Well, I thought it was really strange. The guy they eventually tried to arrest, and he killed himself before they managed to get inside his apartment to arrest him. But like, he's the guy that if you read the Ultimate Evil, he's actually mentioned there because he was the security guard.
Security guard, right?
And they mentioned Maury Terry talks about him as though, well, he's already been eliminated.
Eliminated, right?
Okay, so
He had a copy of Maury Terry's book when they found him in his apartment, right? And that murder was done on Crowley Mass, right? October 12th.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems like very inside. You know, it seems like it's more than coincidence that he got away with it as long as he did, and then he got the tip off. You know, to swallow the cyanide capsule and whatever he did. He probably blew his brains out, but like that.
There's a lot more to that story.
And yeah.
I'm sorry, I talked over you. What'd you say?
Oh, I was just saying, I guess that's the way it was planned, was like, you know, when you finally do get caught, you're going to kill yourself. And then they did, you know, it was like a story only in the local paper that he got arrested. Nobody else mentioned it, or that they tried to arrest him. And then they never elaborated, you know, like the police department never said anything more about it, which the nicest thing you could say about that is maybe they're still investigating something broader, and that's why they don't want to come out with the information. But otherwise, shouldn't they give the public closure on what was a big deal at the time, you know?
Right. No, it's a good point. I don't know. Don't you think more people were probably involved instead of just one guy?
Yes.
How did she get into the chapel, you know?
Yeah, how did he get eliminated as a suspect in the first place?
Right. Yeah, it's super fishy.
So, yeah, I mean, I think if you know, there's all this circumstantial evidence that Process Church was, on the one hand, it's trying to infiltrate all of these bands, pop culture things in the 60s, and successfully doing that. And then, you know, on the other hand, they're also infiltrating the Manson family. They're implicated by other criminals that have already been convicted or confessed to, you know, being involved in child trafficking and murdering people, being
Murder for hire. Yeah.
murder for hire, and then even disguising it, or if it's not a disguise, it's like they add on this element of a ritual. And maybe it means something to them because they are a real cult. But at the same time, it gives the crime cover so that nobody looks into the broader reasons why a certain person was targeted. So it just seems to me like this was the beginning of what ended up, what now encompasses Smiley Face Killers. Like that, whatever that cult is that's doing Smiley Face Killers, I wouldn't doubt at all if they're, if you could trace their lineage, if you ever find them, you can trace them to the Process Church. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think one of the Manson family's victims, one of the lawyers, their defense lawyer, was found in a river. Can't remember the name of him right now. So,
yes.
You wouldn't be surprised if I think Manson probably was hired out to kill Polanski's Sharon Tate and those people. It's probably what happened. It was never explained, but that family. So I wouldn't be surprised if underground there are all these knowledge and connections of how to pull off the perfect crime, and then ritualize it too if they do or want to, or certain dates. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's a direct lineage that goes back 50 years, 40 years. Wouldn't be surprised at all.
We're getting a question from the chat here for you, Bill. If you're familiar with William Sims Bainbridge, Oswald
Yes.
Spanger in the chat says he's also related to this Process Church angle. Have you heard of him? I don't think I've ever heard
Bainbridge
that
was
name.
a very astute academic, actually an intellectual guy who wrote a number of books on a variety of subjects, but one of his books was about the Process Church. And I tried to get in touch with Bainbridge. I actually have his reference stuff. You can send emails to these guys, accounts at these universities. They never get back to you. They must not answer, or they don't know who I am or what. They don't even care. But Bainbridge is one of them I've never been in contact with. But when I was researching the Process Church, I tried to get, and that book is hard to come by. I think it's very expensive right now. I can't remember the title. But yeah, I know of Bainbridge.
Yeah, that's it. Were you going to say something there, Tracy?
No, not at all. Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say that if you've never heard of Steve Outram, we had him on the show a few weeks ago, and Steve's excellent. He's really well known for the Burning Man stuff. He's done a huge expose on Burning Man about how it's pretty much a huge sci-tech government op, kind of Woodstock 2.0. But we were pointing out at the time that they had just busted all this new Michael Jackson documentary stuff out. What was Michael Jackson, R. Kelly. They brought all that out at the identical time that NXIVM really would have been hitting the press. And we speculated at that time that they were once again paralleling, damage controlling. Now here it's a couple weeks later and they're recanting and or casting doubt on some of their statements published in that Michael Jackson Leaving Neverland documentary. So,
Right.
and the NXIVM stuff does continue to develop, and it's really ghastly, kind of all in the same vein.
Yeah,
So-
it's getting worse. There's more and more stuff that comes out. It's getting worse.
It seems like they're definitely pulling their typical media trick of getting us a sleight of hand. But it seems to me like they're using similar subjects. Like, instead of just using something bold and blatant like a war bombing or something, or a scandal, now it's like they're using taboo sex issues to distract us from more severe crimes and acts of the same nature, Go back and think about Michael Jackson, but don't think about that, the Smallville actress is branding people and selling child sex slaves, As it's happening, they're making it parallel once again,
Well, that's an excellent and superb point, because you got to look behind who financed the Neverland documentary,
right,
and why they wanted to put it out. You follow that road. You're like, why is Oprah putting this out? Why are all these moguls behind this Neverland? What's the issue? Are they deflecting? Very important. And the NXIVM is really dark. There's a couple murders associated with that. They just had somebody come out locked in a room for 2 years. They locked some girl in a room. There's human trafficking. The original, the complaint has been amended. It's been updated, but the original complaint alleged human trafficking of a girl under the age of 14. And that was almost never mentioned And I give kudos to the court there in New York for it's never leaked who their victims are, which is really credit to the legal system for that. Nobody's ever put that out. So that's actually the same issue that's happening right now in the Epstein case, which involved international trafficking of young kids to elites. That's an incredible story, the totality of which has not really been realized. So I do think that there are deflections and that there are probably very powerful people who would wish to have people looking at one thing as a misdirection for their own misdeeds. And it's going to get more and more interesting as things progress. The Epstein case isn't going away. So
I hope not.
the Epstein case actually ties into Avenatti, which ties into Nexium. These things are all connected because the same lawyers who are representing the victims of Epstein are the same lawyers that Avenatti walked back into and threatened them, and now is getting a criminal complaint because he didn't send a proper demand letter. He started just using verbal threats.
It's amazing.
No, get this. This is how dumb Avenatti was. So what he does is goes to Boyce Flexner, like this probably one of the best law firms out there, maybe top law firm that represents these girls who were abused by Epstein for multi-million-dollar judgments, big numbers, right? 7 figures. So they go in there, and then he sells them, and he has. This is alleged. He tells them that he has information. He has information about Nike doing wrongdoing, and then leaves, and then they call him back and say, can you come back and tell us that and extort us again? Because we didn't hear it the first time. And he walked back in and extorted him again and didn't think that there was going to be any problem. Like he walked right back into a trap.
Yeah.
Like then the law enforcement FBI were there to record it. Like, it's just so dumb.
Yeah, we didn't get you on tape the first time. No, yeah, that guy, I always thought he was a mark. He seemed like a total mark from the very beginning. The first time I saw him, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to end well.
Yeah, oh, no. It's really bad. There's a side case that's not even associated with the Nike case where he faked his tax returns for 2012 and 2011 and overstated them so he could get a $4.1 million loan. So he's done. He can just send his bar card back to this. Well, in my opinion, he's done. He's in deep, deep, deep trouble. He's really, and that's probably why he thought that the threatening of Nike was his way out, is that he was doing desperate things to cover up earlier misdeeds, is my guess.
Black hat, golden parachute, huh?
Well, he was like Icarus, man. He ascended way up real fast. He's on TV shows, but he's in deep, 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 deep trouble.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It just Boglet makes it like I was trying to think of what to say next, but I'm so dumbfounded at.
Well, here I got something to say. Well, if you want to really have an insight into the Epstein case, I would suggest that you look at a filing that was done by Cassell, Cassell. It was a response to a motion to uncover. There's a huge battle going on involving Dershowitz, Cernovich, and these guys to uncover the victims. They want to know their names, but the response by this Cassell guy was fantastic, and he exposed these guys who really want to know the names of the victims, and they've been seen. It seems. I'm trying to say this carefully, but there seems to be an issue, in my opinion, that people want to get the girls' names who were victims so they can intimidate them.
Yeah,
and that's why they're kept as Jane Doe and John Doe. And so this Cassell response, let me see if I can find it. I actually have it. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, no, if you didn't see it, folks,
it's really fascinating. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just, while you were looking, I was going to say, if you didn't see it out there in the audience, I definitely saw some photography posted of Epstein's little blue and white cube-shaped temple sans the gold lions and the big gold dome. And I assume that probably was real gold, and we're seeing some confiscation of wealth, or at least, I don't know. All of us out here in this conspiracy realm watching the worst things happen to women and children by the most unbelievably wealthy and powerful people that we know their names. I think we all have that hope that something's happening, you know. And I know on the far right, as the QAnon side and that whole subculture, you definitely you're feeling like you're getting some vindication and something like progress after so many years of watching this kind of stuff with absolutely nothing. It seems like they're throwing us some bones out here, and you know, possibly leading up to something like blood in the streets. You know, but I am very jaded and skeptical because we've all been reading this stuff for so long, and you very rarely see any titans fall. You know, you get some sideline stuff. Guys like Epstein go away for not long enough. You know, where they, in my opinion, there'd be nothing wrong with hanging the man by the neck until he was dead. You know, if it all went through legally, you know, I wouldn't have a problem with the death penalty for somebody like that. But we don't ever see that at the high profile level, you know.
It was a massive cover-up. He had the best attorneys, Dershowitz, Black out of Florida. And they not only were they successful in getting him off, but the way that the media held it, they had, in my opinion, I don't even have evidence, but the fact that the whole story was really not covered by the national media should elicit questions by people as to why a story that involved a rich guy trafficking kids from South America and flying around in jets to private islands and New York could not get a case. The federal case didn't involve anybody else. It was just Epstein. So any of his co-conspirators, whether it's Ghislaine Maxwell or anybody else who was involved in getting these kids, never saw any jail time, is outrageous. It's a really incredible story. It's a very important. It's as important as the Franklin cover-up, if not more important. And
it was so weird how like his jail time. He did do jail time technically, but then they just let him out of jail for most of the time to do his job.
I think he showed up for an hour a day, is my understanding.
I mean, I've never even heard of that before. That is weird.
Oh, yeah, no, he got a sweetheart deal. He got something that was it was kind of like the Jussie Smollett, vacate. That's another insider crazy response. That's not even a clever cover-up. Like, at least in the Epstein case, he got something on paper where he had to do time. And Jussie Smollett, they're so clumsy, they just let him off in their entirety. And the backlash from that's going to be really problematic for Fox. And it goes all the way to Michelle Obama. That girl who was talking to Fox was basically Michelle Obama's factotum for 7 years. So, I mean, it's like, that story's crazy. Anyway, it's good that you're right. Just as your original point, the fact that at least some of the big malefactors are getting in trouble is a good thing. Do you know that in a court documents, Virginia Roberts, a.k.a. Virginia Giuffre, said that Dershowitz had sex with her 6 times?
No.
I didn't know that specifically, no.
Yeah. So this is a guy involved in rape, statutory rape, who's teaching at Harvard, supposedly, allegedly. How does that, can somebody explain that to me? What kind of bizarro reality that is? I just don't get it. Like, she's making this allegation, and there was a second girl who came out and alleged that something like that happened.
Well, but Dershowitz is still being interviewed on TV, and what's weird is he'll be interviewed about subjects similar to this, as though he could have an opinion about child trafficking or rape or any kind of Me Too related subject. I mean, how could you interview him about that, you know?
It's off the charts. It's so astonishing. It's just hard. It's hard to believe. Anyway.
Yeah, and I wonder...
Actually, just to interrupt, sorry, but if I put in the notes the 2 things, response in opposition to motion to intervene, DE 550, I would encourage people to look that up. And then also Bainbridge's book was Satan's Power, Psychotherapy, whatever it was. That's what he wrote about process. The hardcover is selling for a very reasonable $257.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, because they don't want
you guys want to set up a GoFundMe. You know,
we can get 1 copy and we can all mail it to each other. Yeah. Dershowitz, if people don't know, I mean, Dershowitz has been involved in the positive, trying to put a positive spin and a positive image on sexual depravity all the way back to Deep Throat. I mean, if I got into looking a little closer at Dershowitz when him and the other famous Jewish professor got in their kind of media tiff. I'm trying to think of the man's name. He eventually lost his tenure. He wrote a book, that wasn't favorable towards Israel. I just can't think of his name. But I dug into it then, and he was part and parcel of getting the whole deep throat thing going. The whole who's Larry Flint? He's just kind of like the long-term spokesman for for in my opinion, bad things, depraved things. And like you guys just said, and you look just a little bit deeper, and these accusations are against him not one time but 6 times. And I'm sure there's that's what's officially documented against him. I'm sure the complaints against him are just as numerous as all the rest of these names, because they all have a very obvious problem controlling and instead feeding their disgusting passions. It's becoming very clear that huge groups of very well-known wealthy people are all completely off the chain with their passions, and it's coming out. It's being shouted from the rooftops that they're not okay, and they've been feeding us media and information and appearing as if they're supposed to be something like a spokesperson or a role model, and we're watching them all being ripped down, like iconoclasm, digital iconoclasm of these people. So.
Well, what about the fact that the anti-movement here, the anti-child trafficking movement, the awareness movement, where people are becoming aware that this is how the government is run by these secretive organizations that are setting people up to be blackmailed with child prostitutes.
Right.
Okay, so the whole backlash movement that started basically with the Clinton emails coming out, and, the QAnon movement has continued it. Okay, so these people all pin their hopes on Donald Trump. And why can't they find someone to pin their hopes on that hasn't hung out with Epstein?
Right.
Isn't that weird that he's his friend?
Right. Right. There's pictures of them together, right? Epstein together. They're within a mile of each other. Mar-a-Lago and Epstein. Trump has said Epstein is a good friend, and he has a similar taste in beautiful women. So very suspicious things. I'm not saying Trump's blackmails, but I think that the entire thing that Epstein was involved with, part of it involved blackmail, because when he got arrested, apparently there used to be a bunch of videos and stuff like that. And the girls testified, they stated to investigators that every time that they had relations with a man, he would debrief them. So Epstein would be there saying, tell me about what happened. What was his interests? How did that go? What was he like? Did he do any of this? Did he hurt you? So that's very suspicious. So
that's definitely the big money maker in having an underage brothel, would be the blackmail factor.
Absolutely. I mean, who's paying? Are people, you don't know who's getting paid under the surface. There was actually a recent development in one of the cases where a John Doe came in and said they didn't want the names of the girls released anymore. They don't even know who this person is, but somebody injected themselves into one of these cases. There were 3 cases. There's the original Epstein case that was taken against him by the federal prosecutor Acosta, right? So that was settled or arranged. The arrangement was made in 2008. Then there were 2 additional cases. One was Edwards versus Epstein that involved a statement Epstein made towards Edwards that Edwards sued Epstein about. That was actually just finalized in December of 2018. And then there's another case between Virginia Roberts, one of the alleged victims, and Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell's daughter. We can go into Robert Maxwell, who was a scoundrel in the UK. He actually once thought he was a rival of Rupert Murdoch. So that was actually the relationship between Epstein and Ghislaine was how Epstein got social imprimatur, is because Maxwell was in social elite circles. Anyway, the third case is between Virginia Roberts and Ghislaine Maxwell, which I think is ongoing, which is what has involved Cernovich and Dershowitz. But it's about the primary issue is about a misstatement by Ghislaine Maxwell to Roberts that said that she was lying. So she said she was lying, and so Robert sued her. And her lawyers, I mean, she got, I don't know who's talking to her, but she like hit the bullseye by getting the right lawyers involved. So there's people who are in trouble. But anyway, there's 3 cases involved. I lost my train of thought, but I sent you, going back to your statement about Dershowitz being a sketchy guy going all the way back. There's a really good article I would suggest all of you read. It's Israel defender Alan Dershowitz has a long history attacking sex abuse victims, and I put that in the chat if you can share that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I first heard of Dershowitz because of the Bill Clinton scandal. He was someone they interviewed almost every night when that was happening with Lewinsky. So
right, I mean, but he goes back. What is it? He did the Von Bulow case where he supposedly killed his wife with an injection of, was it adrenaline or something like that? Remember Von Bulow?
I don't.
Him. Yeah, so Von Bulow was really how Dershowitz really got his start as a defense attorney. And Von Bulow killed his wife allegedly killed his wife by giving her an injection of, what is it if you have diabetes? What's the stuff you have to take?
Insulin?
Insulin. So he gave her a super high dose, allegedly, of insulin and killed her. and Dershowitz got him off. And then he obviously defended OJ. And now he's defending Epstein. So he's been associated with some very sketchy stuff. But you got to read this article. It's interesting because he does attack these people. I had a really good interview if you guys want to listen to it. Her name is Roberta Glass from True Crime Report. And she actually went to this hearing and stood next to Dershowitz and all these people while she was there. And this hearing was recent. It was within the last month. And her commentary is interesting. But the court used the term slut shaming because that's what Cernovich and Dershowitz are being accused of, is that they want the girls' names to do exactly the reason why, the rationale why their names are kept secret. Instead, they want to give them a hard time.
Right, because
so that's what the court's worried about. And the Castle, who was a superb lawyer with a Class A legal pedigree, is saying, well, we can just sit in court and make arrangements and divulge what we want to divulge by still keeping things secret. So it's a very interesting development. But yeah, Roberta Glass, True Crime Report. It's really interesting.
I heard a not too old clip of you, and I know it's Ed Opperman, right? You kick it with Ed Opperman quite a bit, right?
I am his producer. I produce for his show. So really all that job entails is me getting him guests.
Cool. Okay. So what the reason I brought him up is because I do like that Ed always re-interjects Trump into the whole thing, because it seems like somehow he's got a pass, which is the weirdest thing. Like, they put him up in one type of media, legacy, lefty media, completely Satan incarnate, right? And you come over to the other side, and it's like, just kind of keep it on the DL. But like, what, his island is a boat ride away or a short hop in a plane. There's all these connections, and the main reason the reason Ed jumped into my head is because, for one, that man's he's a professional investigator. He's a PI, right?
He's a licensed PI, correct?
Right, he's a PI, and the way he describes the details, you can tell he's holding back a terrific amount of information because he can't say it. He's privy to a whole bunch of. I have a lot of experience with people. I could tell Ed's a cop or a retired cop or something just by the way he talks. So if not, he's been behind the scenes for a long time because he's got that wily veteran about him, and you could just.
To be honest with you, I think Ed does the best. I mean, in my opinion, Ed does the best investigative show on the internet, better, well-known shows, because he's getting information sent to him all the time.
Yeah,
he knows a lot more people than anything he talks about in public. So he can vet stuff. He knows stuff. There's a lot more to the Epstein case. But, Trump, I'm not a Trump pure apologist. I was happy that he won compared to somebody who was venal and corrupt like Hillary Clinton. But he was mixing within the group of the hyper elite, for his whole life. He was born into wealth. He had wealth from his parents, and so those are the people that he associated with. He used to be friends with the Clintons, you know?
Yeah.
You can see in pictures together, them hanging out, joking around. So, and I think he was actually a major donator to the Democratic Party. So he's not like a super rigid Republican. So, but that's their class is these two. I mean, Epstein, I mean, some of these cases, if you look at some of these videos from the Edwards case where they were giving press conferences, Epstein had like planes, trains, automobiles, like almost an army of transportation. He was going to New York. He was going to New Mexico, to his island in the Caribbean, Miami. Like he was constantly moving, talking to people, inspiring people. I mean, he had friends with, I mean, he was arguably, at least Ed says that he was an essential person working with the Clintons to set up the Clinton Foundation. So you had this kind of guy who was mixing it up with really the elite.
Do we know what he's doing now? Like, is he seen hanging out with people? Does he dare to show his face anywhere? I mean,
I don't know. What's a good point? Because when he lost his suit in December, it was a super long suit with Edwards. He had his high-priced lawyer. The part of the judgment, my understanding, was that he had to make an apology. But he had his lawyer read. He wrote it. His lawyer read it out. So I don't know what he's doing. I heard a rumor from one researcher that he bought another island for $20 million in the Caribbean. So I really don't know. I know that there's a lot of settlements and a lot of things under the surface that involve Boyce Flexner and the victims. And so there are a lot of things that haven't hit the courts, you know. These are just 3 of the cases that hit the courts, so there's a record. But that means that all these other cases that, you know, if there's a settlement, they're just kept quiet. So it was interesting that Dershowitz came out of this hearing that was last month in New York at the district court, and I think he let it slip. He said that Anyway, he said something that I think was supposed to be confidential information. So there's a lot of stuff going on it's still going on with Epstein. So I don't know what he's up to. I really don't.
You're not going to tell us what it is?
Well, okay. So the way that I read it, so when you go into a settlement and this is the same for any general settlement, is you sign all types of clauses and things like that maintain its confidentiality. That's usually it, unless there's a special provision that this is supposed to be publicized with a number. You're not supposed to ever disclose the number. And in that, the guy's name was Goodman. He was kind of like a independent researcher, activist. Shoved a mic in his mouth, and I could have swore. I'll have to look at it again. I may be wrong, but I could have swore Dershowitz said Virginia Roberts settled these claims for multi-million dollars, which you're not supposed to say. I mean, she could have got a $1 settlement just to have something as that she was in the right. You know, there's all kinds of strange deals. Well, usually it's obviously financial, but it was weird that he had said that. So that's my recollection. I'll have to.
Yeah, he dropped dollar amounts, even if it's not exact amount. You know, saying, "Oh yeah, she won $100 million" is a huge deal. I mean, that puts a permanent target on your back, whether it's true or not.
Right. So you're definitely not supposed to disclose that. That's a violation of your, of the agreement, especially if he was in that civil case making that decision too.
Yeah.
As an attorney, so I don't even know who his civil attorneys were for those cases. I'm assuming it's Dershowitz, and just until recently, I think 6 months ago, Dershowitz still said he was Jeffrey Epstein's attorney. So
wow,
really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're getting a question in the chat here for William, whether or not, due to the nature of your great work, your research, it says if you ever feel afraid or in fear of repercussions. I mean, I know it's a common thing in the conspiracy realm to, we all have our own degree or variant of hyper-awareness of things going on. And I think that's a pretty good question because this is pretty current affair stuff. Current affairs always make me at least a little bit more, I don't want to say paranoid, but I'm definitely talking about things that are happening as we speak.
Well, I don't really like quoting from Charles Manson, but one of his more famous axioms was total paranoia is total awareness, and I'm close to totally paranoid.
I think all of us in this similar line of inquiry definitely. If you don't have that, then you're not really looking around. I guess your eyes aren't open all the way. And I mean,
I will say a lot of people don't know my past. When I was an attorney, when I was going to law school in D.C., I worked for a guy by the name of John Clark, and I knew Patrick Knowlton for a summer. And the reason those guys are important, Ed has interviewed both of them, you can check them out on the Opperman Report, is that Patrick Knowlton was in Fort Marcy Park the day that the body of Vince Foster was found. So he was the one who contradicted the public statement by saying that he saw somebody there. He saw somebody in the car, and that he saw, it's been 25 years. It's been, I think he saw that Vince Foster's car was there when the police said he wasn't there. So John Clark's still around. John Clark represented Knowlton, and that was an incredible case to work on. I was so young, 24, and there was very serious. Those guys were actually followed by dudes in briefcases, black backpacks, high intensity police cameras, and they actually have those pictures. Knowlton has the pictures of people who really were harassing him. It was a form of government, in my opinion, governmental harassment. And when I worked for John Clark, he had written something. It's very interesting because this was during the time of Lewinsky when the Starr report was coming out, and the chief researcher for the Starr report was Brett Kavanaugh. And the Clintons hate Brett Kavanaugh because of what he put in the footnotes of all the stuff that Bill Clinton, all the stuff that he was doing in the White House, that they never wanted publicized, and which was never publicized. And if you want to read about it, you can go upload the Starr report now and just, type in the word anal and do a search. That's Brett Kavanaugh. But anyway, I was intrigued. I don't know why I said yes, but John Clark had me take this thing that was actually, the springboard to the Supreme Court of the United States is the District of Columbia, right?
Right.
That's the federal court that Kavanaugh came from, all these guys, Scalia. And John Clark was able to get this writer put in on, there wasn't the Starr report. There was another guy who supposedly was an independent investigator for the Vince Foster death. And I can't remember his name, but the writer was an opposite of this other report. I can't remember the guy's name now. He was like a ex-FBI kind of guy. So Clark was very successful, and you can still read that. But I actually hand-delivered when I was 24. I walked through all of the halls of Congress, the senators in the House of Representatives, and hand-delivered this writer that explained really the real truth about Vince Foster being murdered and dumped in the Fort Marcy Park. And it was crazy. Like, I handed things to all these senators personally. And so that just caused grief for me for a long time. So I've always
there's an answer to your question. I think you couldn't answer the question more fully than to say that, when the Vince Foster case was hot, I hand-delivered the writer into the halls of Congress. Yes, Bill Ramsey has a reason to be checking out all of his over his shoulders at all times. Yes, okay. That's
I
wow,
just
what a
can't
story,
even tell
man.
the stories. Actually, if I told the stories, it would discredit me. But there was actually an interview I did with Keith Hansen. God bless him. I don't know what happened to Keith Hansen, but he was really one of the first kind of interviewers. Visigoth. Have you ever heard of Visigoth?
Oh, that sounds familiar.
I have.
Okay, so Visigoth. I did an interview with him. You can listen to it. In 2010, it's 10 years ago, and I explained that whole story in detail.
Cool. Okay.
And but there's the government functions in the United States a lot differently than the public really understands. So different people get into power. They control the FBI. They control the CIA. They control domestic stuff. The FBI, if they don't like you, it's not a good thing. It's not fun. So, if somebody does something corruptly and they have a corrupt FBI people, so I would say for sure, what I do is extremely dangerous.
It is.
I tell people if I get found in a bathroom with a red rope around my neck tied to the doorpost, I was murdered.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that makes me. I haven't thought of this name for a long time, but you talking about that stuff must have stirred up my subconscious. Can you tell us? Do you know anything about Trafficant?
James Trafficant?
Yeah, Jim Trafficant.
I remember James Trafficant.
I remember there was a lady named. They always called her Christian Attorney Linda Kennedy, and I followed her work because I was obsessed with a man named Peter Kawaja. I don't know if you've never heard that. Maybe I'll private message you later, and I'll point you in some directions that they tie into your work. But I remember Linda Kennedy saying that Trafficant was given diesel therapy, that they just keep booking him flights and stuff when he was in the process of getting in all that. I don't remember what the charge was against him. It was all trumped up BS in my opinion. I just don't remember it. But
diesel therapy, huh?
Yeah, just flight after flight in handcuffs and never get to jail and get booked in and then immediately have to leave again and all this kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, that sounds correct. I think they got him on really on nothing. I mean, compared to what some of these other guys do, I think he was taking money and fixing a fence in his house.
Yeah, it was nothing. There was a trumped up BS charge, but
yeah, that's a shame. So here's the thing that I'd hand deliver. Let me see if I can find it. Star Report.
You gonna say something, Tracy?
I was just going to say I'm going to have to bail here soon because I need to take care of my kid.
Yep, no problem.
There, I put it in the show notes. If you want to read it from John Clark stuff, you can read it. It was in the Star Report. Now I remember. Okay. So it was the thing that he put in the Star Report.
Cool.
It was actually agreed upon by 3 district court judges. These were the top of the legal career. Let me see. Yeah, this is very interesting. This is like a piece of history. This goes back. Yeah, it was. Yeah, let me see if I can find that.
Now, where'd you say you dropped it at, Bill?
I put it in the Zoom chat.
Oh, okay, yeah, Zoom chat. There we go. So
there's so many chats going on here.
Yeah, this is.
I got a lot of stuff on the Zoom chat. I don't know if you guys want to switch that around, but that's all the information they put it. Let's see. Yeah, and some of these people are friends with Trump to this day. Christopher Ruddy, who was an investigator into the Vince Foster death, is friends with Trump. I mean, all these guys are still around.
Wow.
Yeah, you must be surrounded by creeps if you're in the inside at all, and I wonder what that's like. If you're not.
DC is really, it runs a lot differently than the public thinks it runs. It runs a lot on blackmail and information, dirt on each other. People are always trying to get dirt on each other. It's really strange.
That's what seems to be coming out. It's like what used to be, alluded to by authors of conspiracy books is now you can actually see them threatening each other on Twitter. It's amazing. They're out in the open about it.
It definitely seems like what we used to witness through, I'd say, a better job of encoding and a better job of being subtle and hiding it. Like it would be exchanged over mainstream media and maybe in print media. You'd see all this subtle interplay of threats and implications and finger shaking and blackmail, bribery, and now it's like Tracy said, okay, so if you're following the tweets and the most basic crappy threat code, you're like, oh, look at these people are at each other's throats over here. So I consider it all just a super acceleration. So the quality and the subtlety has gone way down because now instead of having to articulate a plan to make a threat, you just go on Twitter and go ooga booga, and then it comes across really wonky. Seems like they used to do a lot better job of hiding their evil deeds than they do nowadays.
Well, the social media is real trouble for them because they could really control, there's the media is so concentrated in 4 big companies, they can really just work with them, give them tax breaks. One of the big ways they can control, which a lot of people don't know, is that the office of the president has in addition to other budgets, they can apportion $700 million in anti-drug ads, right? And all of these educational ads to these, they literally pay the big networks just money. So if you're their pal, that's just your bottom line. That's just a free $200 million from the government. Do you think you're going to put that at risk? No. So all those ads at 3 o'clock in the morning, blah, blah, blah. It's really the way they operate and control from the top.
Hey, William, thank you very much for coming on. I'm not wrapping up your interview. I'm not in control of the show here, but I have to go. So it was very nice talking to you, and you've
Nice to talk to
shared a
you
lot
as well.
of great information. So thank you.
Okay, we're gonna give
Well,
Tracy
nice,
an
Tracy.
early.
Good night.
Okay, bye.
Good night.
Thanks, Tracy. We'll be in touch. We'll hit you up here in a little while. And
All right, see ya.
if you still want to, we're usually still on for at least another 30 minutes. If you want to kick it and stick around, Bill, I'm glad to just digress. And you're
I think I'm going to wrap up too, man. I think
Yep.
I'm tired.
No,
Yeah,
I see it's getting late, so we're on the West Coast, so we're a little bit earlier, but we can't thank you enough for coming on. We'd love to have you again sometime, folks. Please check out William Ramsey and everything he's doing. Support his work, especially the Smiley Face Killer stuff. Share that stuff out so that people who drink in bars and like to hang out are aware of the risk that they're in.
Absolutely.
And get a look at this thing. Look at his stuff on the West Memphis 3 and all of the 9/11 Crowley stuff. He's on Twitter. It's all in the description there. And anytime,
Twitter links.
I'll send you some. Is email best, Bill? If I want to hit you up.
Sure, absolutely.
Cool.
You can send it to cultinvestigations@gmail.com. That's fine.
Yeah. So I'll think over some of the stuff we talked about, and I'll be in touch. So.
And you
Great.
guys,
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me. It was a pleasure.
Yep.
yeah, thank you so much.
All right, good night.